Hey guys, Tech Agent, we're back with the Stax SR-5. One of my favorite, if not the favorite Stax of all time. Why? Because it's cheap, it's easily obtainable, it sounds fantastic, it's relatively compact, doesn't look goofy on your head. It's probably the most ideal Stax ever made, apart from the Omega 2, which I think is probably the best modern Stax you can currently buy in terms of just convenience and how it looks. The 09 is great, but 07 is something I personally like more. So the the SR-5 is quite different from those headphones. This is probably the the most you can say normal looking Stax ever made from that time, because after this came the Lambdas and the Sigmas and alphas and stuff, which look quite different from the SR-5. The Alpha and the Gamma, those are I would say relatively normal looking, but the SR-5 I think is still the most subtle Stax ever made in my opinion. So the Stax SR-5 is something everybody can afford. These go on eBay on classifieds for less than $150, and sometimes they come with the Energizer itself. So that's still that's a tremendous value, $150 for a Stax SR-5, because in my opinion this headphone far surpasses probably any modern headphone, even in today's standards, after some correction, because the fidelity that you get out of this Stax is unbelievable. I mean, this is probably the best Stax in terms of measuring, in terms of just fidelity, after the original Lambda, the normal Lambda, which which is the best Stax I think I've heard ever. So the SR-5 is a really good headphone and cheap headphone, and anybody can afford it. Anybody can play this headphone without losing on convenience, because Stax headphones, they're not the most convenient thing ever. So let's talk about the SR-5. This headphone was launched in 1975 and is the 5th generation and the last generation of the much famed, much loved first Stax, the SR-1, which started it all in terms of electrostatics. Now, I don't want to jinx anything, but I am very close to buying or obtaining Stax SR-1, the first Stax, which is probably the rarest electrostatic in the world, apart from the ET-1000. So the SR-1 is probably coming in the collection, so stay tuned for that. Again, no guarantees yet, because the sale is still in negotiation, but the SR-1, the first electrostatic, is coming in the collection. So the SR-1 was the first headphone that was launched in 1960. Then came the SR-2, which was the SR-1 basically, and not many tweaks in from what I can remember. The SR-2 is a very short-lived headphone. The number of units Stax made is unclear, nobody knows, and nobody has seen the SR-2 in flesh yet. It's that rare. It's rarer than the SR-1. So the SR-2 is almost unobtainable in terms of buying it. It's really impossible. I don't think even Stax has a pair at their factory. That's how bad, that's how scarce the SR-2 is. Then came the SR-3, which was you can say the SR-5 of that time. SR-3, I think, just let me look. SR-3 was 1968. So 1968 the SR-3 came, and Stax completely expedited the production of that headphone, because that headphone was probably the most mass market headphone for Stax at the time, because the SR-2 was short-lived, the SR-1 was short-lived, SR-3 was the SR-5 of that time, and then came the SR-5, which was the most sold, most manufactured Stax ever. So the SR-5 is a very significant headphone for Stax, very significant headphone for the Stax fans. And the good thing is they made so many of these that they go for less than $150, as I said, on eBay, which makes them a tremendous value, because the fidelity and the sound you get is unparalleled for what it is. So let's talk about the SR-5. The SR-5 is it shares the same design from the SR-1 and the SR-2 and the SR-3. It's completely same. The only difference between the SR-5 and the SR-1, 2 and 3 is the fact that the headband is plastic. The SR-1 and the the rest of the headphones, they were stainless steel headband. So this is a completely plastic headband. The yokes are stainless steel, but these assemblies, they're plastic. But in the case of the older ones, those were all metal, and quite utilitarian and industrial looking design. So I personally like the way the older ones look, but the SR-5 does the same job. It functions the same. The headband is again raw metal, with a very thin leather on top. The leather, this is I think this is genuine leather. I could be wrong, but you know what, I think this is vinyl. I'm sorry. So vinyl headband, it splits up like that, just like the K160 I showed you guys I think two videos ago. So the SR-5 very comfortable headphone. You would think that the headband with no padding would be uncomfortable, but that's not the case. It's actually a really comfortable headphone. The pads, they're again vinyl, but they're not the shitty vinyl of the K160. This is actually a very comfortable vinyl. It's a high quality vinyl, very comfortable to wear. It doesn't sweat as much as I thought, but at the same time, be careful, because you could, these headphones, because of the coupling, they could, build up some sweat inside the drivers, and that's not what you want in an electrostatic headphone, because that can ruin the diaphragm over time. So just be careful with sweat buildup while listening if you're in a humid environment. So take them off every once in a while. Make sure there's no sweat buildup inside the ear cups, otherwise you will ruin the headphones. So just be careful about that. Otherwise, everything is just really nice. The build quality, as I said, is primarily plastic, but at the same time, it doesn't feel cheap. It feels solid. Nothing cracks, nothing squeaks. This is just world-class build quality. I mean, that's putting together a headphone with any material, that's how, if you do it right, nobody will complain, and that's exactly what Stax has done. It's just a nicely put together headphone. The one thing I don't like about the SR-5 is the cable. Now the cable is this is like the cable you find in the old the irons and stuff. It's really shitty. I mean, I don't like this cable. First of all, the amount of kinks you get with this cable, it's unbelievable. I mean, especially this Y split. This is the part which is the most susceptible to kinks, and I just don't like this design. I hate this cable. Now the good thing is that if you want the SR-5 but you don't want this cable, then you can buy the SR-5 NB, which is the you can say the last hurrah of the SR-5, which was completely matte black, gold accents, and a cable from a modern Stax, the rubber cable. Absolutely gorgeous headphone with the black and gold. I think probably the best looking Stax apart from the Omega 1, which is my favorite Stax. So I really like the cable on that headphone, but this cable, it works. I mean, it's not that long. I think the length is alright, and the overall quality is adequate, because it's a thick cable, so it's not gonna break. And the plug is a normal 6-pin Stax, so that's pretty normal in that case. So I like the build quality. I don't like the cable that much, but again, as I said, if you want the SR-5 but you just don't want the cable, you can put a SR-5 NB cable. You can also recable this with an NB cable or any other Stax rubber cable, and it should be just fine. So it's fairly easy to mod this headphone, but again, be careful while opening these up, because it's it's an electrostatic headphone. So the SR-5, I really love this headphone. Now let's talk about the driver itself. Now this is a 6 micron diaphragm, so it's a relatively thin diaphragm for the time, because the SR-1 uses 6 to 5 micron diaphragm. I think the SR-3 was a 5 micron diaphragm, so slight variances in the size from the SR-1 and the SR-3, but overall the average was 5 to 6 micron. So it's a relatively thin diaphragm. Now the overall sound quality of this SR-5, in my opinion, is stunning. It's first of all, the bass response is incredible. After some correction, the bass on this guy, I mean, this is probably the cleanest bass you'll ever find. I mean, for the age, stators are in beautiful condition. The coating is just fine. There is no problem with excursion. And even modern music, if you're playing electronic music and stuff, EDM, everything, this headphone will handle everything and anything. That's how good it is. The impulse response is absolutely tremendous, and the overall fidelity is just incredible. Now, one good thing is that if you're interested in these old Stax headphones, Style has just done a complete breakdown measurements of the old Stax headphones. If you want to look at the square wave response, check out the measurements. But these headphones, they measure incredibly well. Now this headphone, the SR-5, the SR-1, all these headphones are pretty good. But if you're looking for something something even better in terms of measuring, then I would say go for the Lambdas, the original NB Lambdas, which is, I think, my favorite Lambdas, because although they might not be as thin as the 1 micron Lambdas, they just sound tremendous and they measure incredible, and the bass response on those is just fantastic. So I really like the SR-5. I think it's pretty fantastic. For the age, it does everything you could want. The price is insane, and just the amount of competition this headphone gives to modern headphones is unreal. Because I mean, electrostatic headphones are easy to manufacture, but you can go wrong, and there are many bad electrostatic headphones. And the 009, which I have said a lot of bad things about, are justified. But the SR-5, it for the price and the performance it gives, it's absolutely worth it. I think this headphone is the best Stax you can currently buy in terms of price to performance ratio, because this thing beats everything and anything. So anyway, this was the Stax SR-5, my favorite Stax of all time. The Lambda, again, I think I like the Lambdas a little bit more, the NB, because of the bass response, but the SR-5 is the best price to performance ratio ever, and I recommend this headphone highly. I don't talk about recommendation. I don't say go buy a vintage headphone, but I say buy this headphone, because this headphone, I really like this headphone. I'll see you guys next time with more vintage headphones. Take it easy, and like always, have a good one.